So, what happens when a whole region, a place that was just swimming in wealth, gets totally stripped bare and, well, left for dead? Now, this isn't just some thought experiment. It's the real story of boom, bust, and a pretty wild reinvention in a place they call the Wisconsin Cutover. And trust me, it's a story that has some serious lessons for all of us today.
Okay, so let's start with this quote here from 1928. At first glance, it sounds pretty simple, right? But it's a shocking admission of failure. You've got the top agricultural expert in the whole state basically saying, you know that whole idea we had that farms would just pop up after we cut down all the trees? Yeah, that was completely wrong. This wasn't just some casual idea, it was the official plan, the big promise for the future. And here he is admitting it was a total bust. So you gotta ask, what could have gone so incredibly wrong?
Well, that quote comes straight from the heart of a place they called the Cutover. And really, the name says it all, doesn't it? This wasn't some natural landscape, oh no, this was man-made. I want you to picture it. Imagine these incredible, massive pine forests, just stretching on forever. Now, delete that image and replace it with a wasteland, a desolate landscape of nothing but tree stumps and debris. That was the Cutover. It was, you could say, the scene of the crime.
So, to really get how it ended up like this, we've got to rewind to where the whole problem started, with this absolutely frantic, profit-hungry logging boom.
And this really gets to the heart of what's called a resource frontier. Think about it. Investors looked at northern Wisconsin and didn't see a place to build homes or communities. They saw a treasure chest, one they could just pry open and empty out. The entire economic model was dead simple. Get the timber, cash in, and get out. And that kind of short-term thinking, it was basically setting the stage for a total disaster.
So after all the trees were gone, the whole region was staring down the barrel of economic ruin. The solution, though, seemed pretty obvious, right? You've got all this cleared land, so of course it could become a farming paradise. This became the next big promise, the next dream they sold to the people of the Cutover.
And wow, this slide just nails the total disconnect between the dream and the reality. On one side, you've got the sales pitch, a paradise of golden grain and rich green alfalfa. Sounds great, right? But then you look at what actually happened. The brutal reality settlers discovered was thin soil, brutally long winters, and that dream farm, it turned into a desperate day-to-day struggle just to survive. Thousands of people just had to give up and walk away from their land.
And here is the absolute bottom line. This whole farming experiment, it was built on a complete lie. It wasn't about bad luck or a few tough seasons. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of the land itself. The plow just couldn't follow the axe. The soil was never gonna let it happen. The dream of a farming paradise was officially dead.
So, okay, the forests are gone. The farms are failing. Northern Wisconsin is right on the edge of collapse. It had to find a third way forward, a totally new identity, basically rising from the ashes of these two failed industries.
So just think about that for a second. What was even left? The timber's gone. The soil is terrible. What on earth could they possibly sell to save the entire region's economy?
You know, the answer is just so ironic. The one and only resource they had left was the devastation itself. Crazy, right? The destroyed forests had actually created a whole new kind of landscape, this rugged wilderness with all these lakes and new young trees. And it turns out, people from the big cities, people who were desperate for a dose of nature, would actually pay to come and visit it. The very land that had been plundered was now being repackaged and sold as a pristine, natural getaway.
And listen, this wasn't just some small change. This was a complete revolution. Just look at these numbers from only 2 counties, and this is by 1932. We're talking over 200 hotels and resorts, and get this, an unbelievable 4,000 private summer homes and cottages. Think about that for a second. A whole infrastructure built from nothing. A brand new economy was just exploding, and it wasn't built on taking stuff out of the ground anymore. It was built on selling an experience.
But this whole cycle, from the logging boom to the farming bust to the tourism boom, it left some pretty deep scars. This pattern, this intense exploitation followed by just walking away, it has a really lasting effect on the communities that are left to deal with the aftermath.
And this brings us right back to that key idea of the resource frontier. You have to remember, the goal for those original investors was never about building a community that would last. It was all about quick, short-term profit. So what happens when the resource runs out? The money disappears, the investment is gone, and it's the local people who are left to pick up all the pieces.
And what you end up with is something sociologists call a maintenance community.
It's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a community that isn't really growing or thriving anymore. It's just trying to hang on, just to maintain whatever it has left. And the human cost of a cycle like this, it's just immense. You can see it spelled out right here. Young people, they leave to find better opportunities somewhere else. Businesses have to close their doors. Hope starts to fade. And maybe the most damaging thing of all is that an entire community begins to believe that its best days are already in the past.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. You can see it plain as day in the data. Take a look at the population of Washburn, which was one of these boom towns. Between its peak in 1895 and the year 1950, it lost 60% of its people. 60%! That's literally the ghost of the boomtown, and you can see it right there in the census numbers. So when you boil it all down, the story of the Wisconsin Cutover isn't really just history. It's more like a blueprint for what happens in so many communities even today. You know, from coal country in Appalachia to regions that are betting everything on the next tech boom. It really forces us to ask a super critical question that, honestly, we're still trying to figure out all over the world. What happens when the resources, whatever they might be, finally run out?